Welcome back, mamas. Today we have a beautiful sister in Christ with us. Her name is Tammy Green. We are shooting live from her business, Mission Nutrition. If you are around the Troy area, I'm sure you've been there, you know of it. If you haven't been there, you need to come. And
what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing with your life? We didn't have enough time to get drinks prior to this podcast. I'm really bummed. So afterwards, that's where I will be heading. As you know, with this podcast, we love bringing in guests with powerful testimonies from women who are relatable, just like your everyday woman or mom. What Tammy is about to share today is a story that goes from devastation to devastation, or you could say trial to trial. But then after the season, we all go through hard seasons, right? But hers went from trial to new beginnings and abundant blessings. It's a story of one mom who, like Maria in our last podcast, shared, has not let adversity define her or limit her. Instead, Tammy has entrusted her life and her family, her kids, to the Lord, and the Lord has provided. And that's what we're here to share today. We want to lift up and encourage women out there, you single moms out there going through hard things. We just really, really think this testimony is going to hit home with you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce you, Tammy. Tammy, would you mind kicking this off with where you grew up, how many children you have, and anything else you want to add in?
Absolutely. First, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. I grew up in St. Peter, St. Charles County area, born, raised, lived there my whole life. I have two amazing, wonderful kiddos. My son is 17 and my daughter is 14. And they're definitely, don't blink. They're giving me a run for my money. But I don't know what I would do without them.
Yeah.
The past 5 years have been really hard, but also really amazing at the same time. Basically, straight out of college, I got married. My first boyfriend, my first kiss, all of it, whirlwind. We met at church, and it just, one thing led to another, and we, it was quick and it was great. After 15 years of being married, it ended. And I think that is where I really learned what it means to have faith.
Wow. When was this? So 15 years into your marriage, what year was it that it ended?
So 2019.
Okay. Oh,
so,
that's a great year to start.
Right?
Thank you and COVID. You're welcome.
Great. So it's been just over 5 years since the divorce and everything happened. Initially, I think, my kids were in shock because they didn't realize exactly, that there was really a problem. Mm-hmm. They were younger and just, it wasn't things that kids need to know about. It's one thing for, kids to be aware that parents are struggling, or parents can struggle just like they can struggle.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Well, every relationship struggles, right?
Right.
And also you just know what you know. You think that's normal.
Yes. So it was kind of a shock to my kids. And so with helping them process everything and then me processing everything as well, it was difficult. In the first 3 months after we separated, my kids and I moved 4 times in those 3 months. Thankfully, I had family who was wonderful and scooped us up, and
thank God.
I don't know what we would have done without them.
So there wasn't really much time to plan for it. It was just like there was a breaking point and done.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is probably what happens most of the time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think most people go into a marriage or a relationship thinking, oh, this is going to end at, such and such point. Yeah. There was a breaking point, and it just happened. So finally, after I think it was 7 months, we moved our 5th time into a home that we lived in for 3 years. And that really truly became a place of peace and safety.
Do you know why that is? It's the stability of not having to move?
The stability, definitely. But I think all of us healed there. And I personally realized a lot about myself and got myself back, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Figuring out my likes, my dislikes. It's so different when you're married. You consult your spouse for most things, including probably the color of the walls and the decorations. And I was able to truly figure out who I was, from decorations all the way down to everything else in my heart. And, there were moments where things got scary. And, I was born and raised in church. And
are you talking financially scary? Or like, what was scary?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in church, but that your whole life you hear peace that passes understanding. You hear all of these Bible verses and quotes and everything, but there was one specific point where my kids were struggling and they were having a scary moment, and they called me at work, and I just, mom scrambling to make everything okay. And as I'm trying to deal with all of this stuff with my kids and make sure they're okay, one of the prayer leaders at our church at the time, he's calling me and just like, hey, I felt like I needed to reach out. And so I'm texting him, I'm on the phone, and we had prayer warriors just praying over us. And the peace that passes understanding, I lived that out.
So finally, it became real.
It became absolutely real. I picked up my kids after work from a neighbor, and we went home. And in the place where, I thought I would be on edge and worried and scared, we walked through our door into our house, and just peace fell over us. We sat down, we had dinner together, and we're laughing, and
it just didn't make any sense.
It did not make sense. And I'm like, wow, I don't understand this. Oh, that's what peace that passes understanding means. So I think that was a big, wow moment. Okay, this is what this means. God really is taking care of us. Does God want us to get divorces? No.
Right.
Is God going to take care of us? Absolutely. And I watched from honestly day one, my kids and I call it mini miracles. Mini miracles happen. You're not even expecting things, but just where you see, oh, God worked that out. God worked that out. It strengthened my faith. Up to this point, I don't think my faith had really been tested until it's
Rock
not
bottom.
tested till it is.
And then you see God in all the little moments, and you look back and be like, wow, you really are a God of detail that cares about all the little things that I care about. There's so many times I look back and I'm like, oh, God knows that I love this, and it's so silly, or like something that seems whatever, and it's like, no, he shows you I know you.
Yes, absolutely.
And it reminds me of the people that question, and it's one of the great mysteries, why do some people suffer more than others, and different lots and all the things. But through your hardest trial, you became close to God, and you felt, you tasted and saw how good he was. Through Sadie's trial, even though I was a striving Christian, that was the inflection point of my faith. So
yeah,
he really does turn those into good, and it's a great mystery, and we don't know all the answers, but we know this, in this life we're not promised anything, in the next life we are, but we are promised that he'll take care of us.
Yes.
And I love that so much.
Yes. And I think one of the first times that I saw, God does care about the details. In the first few months after we separated, while the divorce was all happening, one of those times we moved was to a house in the woods in the middle of 3 acres. I am a wannabe country girl. I don't do critters. And
So it sounds good on paper.
Right? It sounds great. And I loved it. But as we're getting ready to move, The morning that we were getting the moving truck, I texted one of my friends who had a barn and my kids rode horses there. And I was like, hey, I think I need like a farm cat. Where do I get one? And I will never forget this. I am standing in the middle of the cleaning supply aisle at Walmart at like 6:30 in the morning. And she texts me and says, well, do you want Percy? Percy was my kid's favorite farm cat at her farm. Aww. And I was like, what? And she said, I was actually last night thinking I really need to rehome her because she's not getting along with the other cats. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And just seeing the timing of that, we had just seen her a few days before that. Nothing was discussed, no thoughts of anything. Yeah. But, within those 12, 24-hour period, God planted the idea in her mind. And then he planted the idea for me to reach out to her. Yeah. So that was like the first of many.
And how much joy did that cat bring your kids?
That cat, I am not a cat person, but I'm a that cat person.
You sound like me.
She was so much more than so much more than a farm cat. She became an outlet for my kids when they just needed comfort and to snuggle and love on something. She became an outlet for me in moments where I just could not keep it together. Yeah. I would sit and snuggle her and she would purr and just give love. And yeah.
And is she like, so I have a cat that I got in a similar situation. Like I felt like God sent it.
Yes.
I saw this. I saw this cute, my friend Melinda McDonald. I was in youth ministry at her house and her cat had kittens. It was the cutest kitten, this one. I was like, oh my gosh, that kitten's so cute. And she kept going, you should take him. You should take him. I'm like, no, I want to stay married, like not taking him. So then one night, like leave her house, and I had gone to the store and all kinds of stuff, and pull into the garage, go upstairs, go to bed, whatever. And the next morning, my husband's like, Samantha, why is the garage meowing? I was like, the garage is meowing? I don't know. And I'm like, yay! And so I like run down, and we find him, and he had crawled up in my motor, and his little whiskers were burnt off. He had motor oil all over him, but he was like not hurt, just. They were seared. Yeah. And so then I was like, oh, and he's like, well, go post him on Facebook to get rid of him because I'm highly allergic to cats. So I have him upstairs. I'm taking a bath. I'm like, but he's so cute. And I pick him up and I start snuggling all over him. And then I was like, oh, my eyes aren't itching. I was like, it's a cat from Jesus. And then I found out he's a Maine Coon, partial Maine Coon. And so he's like hyperallergenic. But then that led to the next like hardest trial of my life. And like same thing. The cat, like anytime, and I was going to ask you, like your cat, it's like almost like he has a sense. Like when I was upset, he'd just come running out of nowhere. Yep. And I'm like, how did you know?
Yeah, they know.
How did you know?
She says when she's like talking to God or praying or something like that, he always comes in. And we did a podcast. And he's like,
sound like I'm crazy. But I swear, every single time. And we were doing this podcast about Sadie and this God dream. And normally he would like stay for a little bit and then get up, and like he just laid across the the whole entire podcast. And like I don't know, it's really so
cat.
It's cat from Jesus. So
now we know with fur on.
Yeah. What color is Percy?
She is black and white and gray and little hints of brown. Like
still around.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep. She's
awesome.
still around.
You should send us a picture so we can post it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's more.
Okay.
There's more.
Here we go.
So fast forward. I guess it was about 2 years. So I was a nurse, been a nurse for 18 years. Did adults, did a lot of pediatric care. When my last nursing position that I had, I was a pediatric neuro-oncology nurse coordinator, taking care of little brain tumor kiddos down at Children's. Right after I started there, very suddenly, very unexpected and tragically, my dad passed. I had just been at a dinner with all my coworkers, with the whole department. And hours later, I wake up to pounding on my door, and I remember specifically thinking, wow, I can sleep tomorrow. I'm going to turn my ringer off. Everything's going to be fine. And everything was not fine. And my dad it's actually a beautiful story. I won't go into all of it, but he had a major brain bleed and ended up passing within a couple hours after they were able to reach me. And I didn't realize until that point how much of a daddy's girl I was. But I was a daddy's girl.
Yeah. He was always there type of dad.
Yeah. So, in the midst of all of this, we had started dealing with custody issues and some concerns. So, my kids and I are already stressed and in turmoil over that. I have this new job. Then this happens with my dad. We're just starting to get back on our feet, or I'm starting to get back on my feet.
That's a very high pressure job too, high emotion job.
It is,
and long distance. Where were you living at the time?
O'Fallon. Yeah. It was. I mean, I would drive a few days a week in to Children's and then work from home the other days. But yeah, you have to pay attention. You have to make sure treatments are correct and labs are ordered. But about 4 months later, I was driving home from Children's from working, and I got in a bad car accident. I had stopped for traffic, and a car behind me didn't look like they were even slowing down and hit me straight on. Ended up with a good amount of injuries, but I'm here. I'm here to tell about it. And I feel like that's a miracle in and of itself, just the way things played out. But I ended up with a bad concussion and something called post-concussion syndrome. So, those symptoms like to linger and come and go as they please.
Even still now?
Even still now, yeah.
Wow. So how long, I missed, when was that?
Yeah, that was in January of 2022.
Okay.
So
yeah,
a little over 2 years. My short-term memory is not great. So despite all the therapies and everything that was done in the first year or two, my memory is not any better.
So pause for a second.
Yeah.
So you had, the divorce, the trials. I'm sure they're just like, somebody that loses a loved one. I'm sure there's a grieving process and all these steps that you go through that people that haven't gone through it wouldn't be aware of. And then you lose your dad, which is your anchor, it sounds like. And almost when things were maybe starting to get a little better, you had this great job, all these things seem to be aligning. And then you have this accident where I'm trying to remember where I was going with this. Oh, and then you had, like, how intense was the therapy? I mean, because you were just kind of like, oh, and I had therapy, but I imagine that was a really, really intense amount of therapy and extra to-dos. And then
absolutely,
what happened with your job right away?
So the therapies, I was going to at least one appointment basically every day. Wow. Concussion therapy. In the first few months, I couldn't even walk without holding onto something. I was dizzy. If I wasn't holding onto something, I would start to topple over. So just, I was a mess.
And you were a single mom at that point.
And I was a single mom, and we were still going through custody issues at the time. So, communication and co-parenting was not at its best.
And you're still trying to grieve your dad. I mean, every angle, really.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming you couldn't drive. Or
I
could
probably
you?
shouldn't have.
Oh.
But as a single mom.
Yeah.
And even though, I had family, they all have jobs and kids. And so, I probably shouldn't have.
Well, maybe it was more when you were standing up, you were getting, so maybe seated, you did better.
Once I was still for a little bit, I did better, definitely. But I think God protected me and a lot of other people. Hindsight's great.
If the doctors didn't say not to drive.
I think they were ignoring.
She's like,
the
well,
fact
they did.
that-
No, I'm just kidding. We'll say.
I'm pretty sure they were
Ask for
ignoring the
forgiveness.
fact
Yeah,
that I came alone and
Yeah.
had my car keys in my hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, you have all of those things happen, boom, 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 and it really felt like, God, what is going on
Yeah.
here? I can't catch a break.
Yeah.
You know, I was just able to breathe. I was at this place where financially I didn't rely on anybody. But I keep going back to I didn't rely on anybody. I was doing it on my own. And I knew God was calling me out of nursing. But once again, I didn't depend on anybody. And I did not want to leave that security. My kids were going to have free college, just all the perks and the benefits. And it was a few weeks after the accident. This is a huge turning point. I remember this very clearly. I was having a come to Jesus talk with Jesus. I was telling Jesus what's what.
You're like, listen, Jesus, you need to come to you.
Yes,
Okay.
I have this figured out. And I wish I was joking, but I was not. I was not joking. I very clearly, I'm sitting in my bedroom and I'm looking at finances and all the things, and I'm thinking this through, and out loud I'm praying, and I said, God, I know you don't want me in nursing anymore, but, and I started going through all the reasons. I have a great income, my kids will have free college, you know, all of these things. And then I got real sassy and I said, if you want me to leave this job, you're going to have to remove me. Guess what?
Oh, no.
I was removed. And there was no way I was going to be able to go back to nursing. As much as I had hoped and wanted, and I loved being a nurse. Yeah. So I'm sitting here and I am like,
another blow. Like,
yeah,
it's still, even if you think God, you knew at the time, obviously God was calling you somewhere else.
yes.
But even so, right, when you hear the news like, hey, we're going to have to let you go or whatever, which it's so sad because it wasn't your fault. It was the person behind you that hit you, which again, was an accident, but still.
Yeah.
That's another thing to grieve. Your career, your life, like, you know, your ambitions and everything you worked so hard for, the nursing school you went to. And I can imagine that being just another thing you had to really walk through and grieve.
Oh my goodness. It was a whole process. Up until honestly recently, I would have the whole grieving process, the anger, the sadness, the, you know, shoulda, woulda, whatever. I've been going through that cycle for a long time, over my marriage, over losing my dad, over the accident. Why couldn't that guy have just been watching where he was going? Why did this have to happen? But hindsight, because God had a plan. And me being as stubborn as I am, it was not my plan. So, you know, here I am. I don't have a job. I am too sick to get a job. Thankfully, I had some disability coverage that took care of us for a short time. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, God, what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And in the midst of all of this, I'm leading a single moms group at my church. And
what got you into that? I mean,
Being a single mom.
you're
Just
sorry.
kidding.
Sorry, you're leading it. I can see just from our conversation because, you know, just to give the listeners perspective, we only met each other. I met Tammy through coming and getting these amazing smoothies. So she really didn't know who I was. And you've not, have you technically met? Okay.
Well, the one time at the social.
Okay.
For like a brief
Yeah,
second.
we did end up, you know, having a social here and whatnot, but it was a point, something had occurred and I finally had the conversation with you, Tammy, and I was like, oh my gosh, sister in Christ, like, look at all these things. So just given that knowledge that I don't know you that well, but I can see your strength. You know, just like you said, you're kind of even arguing with God because you're strong. You're going to take care of it. You're going to do what you need to do. So here you are going through all these things, and yet you're leading this single moms group. So what brought you into that role?
It's a great question. I don't know what brought me into that role. One of the big things that have gotten me through all of the hard and the struggles and the heartbreak was, okay, God, if this has to happen, use it for your good. If this has to happen, I want to be able to help somebody else. I don't know what prompted the leaders in the church to ask me, but they asked me if I would be interested in leading, and I said yes, absolutely. Awesome. And I loved it, and I love those moms. One of the moms, so just after my accident, one of the moms, the new moms, she had moved here from Mississippi, and I'd never met her before. And she moved up here to open up a nutrition club. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of those. What is this? And at first I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's my thing. But then one day I was coming back from an appointment and I was like, I think her business is right over here. I'm going to go stop in and say hi and get a drink and just, support her. And I went and I got the Reese's egg shake.
It's so good.
It is so good.
Yes.
If you are a Reese's person, you need to have it.
Sam and I tried that at the social.
Yeah.
I think Sam had 3 drinks that night. That's okay.
Listen.
Yeah. I took like one sip and I looked at her and I said, there is no way this is healthy. Yeah. We became good friends and just a lot of conversations over the course of time of where's God leading me, and also just still being in awe of the fact that these things taste so good, but they're not bad for you. And one day, she had been giving me trouble saying, oh, you should open your own nutrition club. And I'm like, no, maybe someday. I slowly started coming around to the idea. And one day she called me and she said, so there's a nutrition club in Troy that she's selling it. Do you want to buy it? And I immediately said no. And I hung up. And then I was like, wait, I should not have said no. And I called her back and I was like, hold on, let me think about this. And one thing led to another. And
so you weren't the original opener of this? I did not know that.
It was here, I think, about 9 months before I took over. But yeah. So total, I guess the business has been in Troy about 3 years. But even in the midst of, the conversations and negotiations and everything, honestly, there weren't negotiations because I sat down and I'm like, God, I feel like these are the criteria and this is what you're telling me to expect. And this whole time I was praying, God, I just need clarity and I need to feel peace about this. And when I picked up the phone to call, and, have my first ever conversation with the owner at the time, I didn't have to ask for a thing. Every single thing on my list, she offered it. And I was like, okay, I don't think we get any clearer of a message than that.
That's like Karen's testimony. That reminds me of that. I try those things all the time, but I never get an answer. But I guess when you're like really like, Lord, when he really wants you to move, the community kind of came to us, but it was just community. That was it, Lord.
That was it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then,
Did you have anything funny on the list? Like just to make sure, like Gideon, and also make sure there's like a pink wall in the bathroom.
I should have that, but then that also takes brain cells that, they just weren't firing. But even, once her and I actually met and had more conversations, the day that we signed papers to hand everything over, her and I actually truly did have a deep conversation. And I told her, you know, this, what I just told you guys about, just the confirmation and the peace. And she's like, wow, that's interesting, because I had my own criteria. And when we talked, you met
how
all
God
of it.
Works.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So definitely a God thing, but, never in my life did I ever think in my wildest dreams that I would own a business. And I definitely was in over my head. I probably still am. I mean, if we're being honest.
Like at this point, I just am used to it though. It just feels normal.
Right. It does. And there have been so many times where I'm just like, God, I don't see the purpose here. You know, why am I staying here just to struggle? You know, single mom, income is not steady, not stable. Sure. If people aren't buying drinks,
yeah,
I don't have an income. So that was scary. And I would freak out and I'd pray and be like, God, I just need you to show me, because I am ready to just close my door, literally ready to close my door. And the next day I'd have like a record setting day.
Wow.
And there were days where one of my employees, Sarah, she's been with me from the very beginning. Little things, the details that God's all about, but we think are too small. There were a couple times where we got down to our very last cup. The shipments were delayed, and I'm sitting here freaking out, like, what am I going to put a drink in? And there was one time specifically that I'm like, it says that it's lost. I don't know what to say. And she's out there working, and I come back here and I sit at my desk and I'm like, God, please just send the cups. And literally not 5 minutes later, the guy walks through the door with all the cups. And she said in that moment, she was like, wow, that prayer worked. But I mean, whether it was a coincidence, whether it was God, it was God.
Especially, I feel like if he's calling you out to something.
Yeah.
And especially like you're a single mom, you know, you don't have currently a protection of a husband or something like that, and your dad is not there. So it's like, I feel like he is always tenderhearted and merciful and all those things, but especially to those people, you know.
If you're not open to looking for those moments, you're going to miss them. Yeah. But
so many people, you can chuck it up as coincidence or God moving or, you know, in answered prayer. And so it's like you get to choose how you see it. And if you choose to see it as in God's moving in my life, it's like you'll start to notice all the little things. But if you take your mind in the other direction, you're going to miss all the things that God's doing in your life.
Yes.
And is it, if when we turn away and we're not walking in step with him and his will, is his spirit with us? I mean, it says he'll never leave us nor forsake us, but I imagine just like, you know, if somebody that is, I don't know, is that biblical what I'm saying?
I mean, I guess if you're stepping out of, I think he's always calling us. He's always pulling us back. Yeah. So, you know, he's, like you said, he's never going to leave you or forsake you. I think it's more about, he's always going to be like knocking at the door like a gentleman, but it's more about, are you going to?
Your faith activates his
exactly.
promises even more. Not that he's there to forsake you or whatnot.
Yeah.
We talked about on the last podcast as well, many folks that have turned away from God, and you know, in my opinion, it's like the seed that has, you know, fallen on the rocky soil or the soil where the weeds have choked it out. And a lot of folks that we've known had been 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So we were, you know, sharing that, you know, did they ever taste and see how good the Lord is? So I mean, you could have gone a different path, right? You could have gone down a reckless path, you know. Just like with Sadie's situation, we could have been angered and bittered and all those things, but we chose, we're going to cling to God, put a smile on our face, and trust him, you know?
And all of those things did happen. Anger, bitterness.
Yeah.
I can't say I ever got to the point of hate, but God, I mean, this is not why I had kids. I did not have kids so that they lived in a broken home, that they had to go through all of this, that they had to have the emotions and feelings that they're having. God, why did you let this happen? Why is this happening?
That's a good way to put it too. I don't want to say like I never like you know, I was like, oh, this is great. No, but you have real emotions, right?
Yes,
but at that point you're like, here's the cards. Here's the lot I've been given.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
Which path do I want to take?
and it's like just like the same situations. I think people maybe when you're talking about it from the outside, like you still had fear, you know, going through Sadie's situation or going through it's not like you're just sitting there like, oh, I'm not scared. God's got this. It's, you still have fear of that, but your fear of God is greater than the fear of the world. And so it's, you know, you're still going to experience those emotions. You're not voided of all of that.
Absolutely.
So it might still feel like, you know, it's like he gives you peace and you have peace in a certain way, but it's not always 100% peaceful. It's like you're still up at night,
Well, that's why he says
you
put
know?
on your armor. You
like,
have to keep that armor on. You have to stay in the word to be protected. He sends friends that are going to be there to support you, godly support. So yeah, it's a constant battle.
Absolutely. And I mean, God made us human. So no matter how perfect anybody might think they are, we're going to have all those human emotions. But the hardest thing is sometimes pulling yourself out of those emotions. There were so many points. I can't say I didn't sit and stew for a minute, but if you just sit and you stew in it, you're miserable. Everyone around you is miserable, and it's not doing any good. One of my friends tells me all the time, feel your feelings. So I definitely have learned to take that moment to process what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it. But then I need to get back up and say, okay, God, what are we doing? And
was that like a heart-to-heart convo with your friend? Like, listen, Tammy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love you, but here's the deal.
Absolutely.
I always feel like when I see someone or I'm having a moment like that, I'm like, I think of Elijah. God's like, listen, Linda, sit down, have a snack, take a nap, okay? Sometimes we just need to go have a snack and take a nap.
Absolutely.
Reset it.
Yes. And there's a lot of those moments where it's okay to do that reset. And it definitely, you know, the people you surround yourself with makes a huge difference. I'm not saying isolate yourself, but have your people, your people who keep you in check and are there in those deepest, darkest, hardest moments where you haven't showered in a week. You haven't pulled yourself together. Have people that you let in, because that's, I mean, they're the hands and feet of Jesus. I don't know what I would do without the people that God placed into my life and my kids' lives at just the right times.
Was there a turning point though? Because it seemed like at one point in your story you were saying like, nope, I'm going to take care of it.
Oh yeah.
Like was it a transition to become vulnerable, to accept help, to be open with people, to say, hey, I am struggling?
Yes. I mean, my whole life in one situation or the other, I figured it out. I just figured it out. I made it happen. No matter the situation, failure is not an option. But being able to finally open up and be like, yeah, I don't got this. I need help. And finally, you know, it's funny watching, or hindsight, I guess, looking back and seeing how your perspective or your view of the future changes. Because used to, I gave Jesus a come to Jesus talk. But now, you know, someone asked me just business talk a little while back, you know, what's your goal in 3 years? What's your goal in 5 years? And I'm just like, I don't know. It's whatever God has for me. I don't know if I'm going to keep my business open tomorrow. Like if God tells me close the doors, if this isn't going to happen, okay.
Have you seen any God moments happen within, like, have you met people?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
About God.
The conversations I have across that bar. It's,
this is a non-alcoholic bar, by the way.
Yes, it is non-alcoholic. But we have drinks named after alcoholic beverages.
you know, the listeners are like, oh, it's a bar in Troy.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
They're like,
But I mean, you can act
be
as,
surprised when they show up. They're like, die.
act as goofy as you
Just
want.
kidding.
You can pretend. I don't know what to tell you. But my purpose here is to show God's love to others, and whatever that looks like. Yeah. The conversations that I've had, I never in my life would have thought I would have those conversations. The moments where, you know, I'm just making drinks, it's been a busy morning, and then all of a sudden this whole God conversation happens, and I love it. Yeah. I've seen, and I continue to see over and over, the reasons why God has me in Troy. Initially, I was like, Troy.
Are you living in Troy? Or?
Not yet. Okay. Yep.
Are you still in O'Fallon?
I'm in like St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
We moved one more time.
Yeah, we're coming to stalk you. No,
Eventually. Letting my son graduate, and then I'll look.
Okay. Yeah.
I know you're a big networker too with other businesses and helping people out too. So we've definitely, you know, taken notice of that as well.
The small business community out here is absolutely amazing. My first week that I was open, I can't even tell you how many small business owners came and said, hi, let us know if you need anything.
Love that.
We need to get connected with them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just working together, doing events, fun sales. Yeah. It's amazing. And when one small business owner might be struggling or might have a need, everyone just pitches in and jumps in. Awesome. Which is, I mean, that alone, yeah.
Protection from so many angles.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things that pretty soon after my separation with my ex-husband, my sister had sent me this song, and it talked about God being a ring of fire around you, protecting you. And that became my prayer. Mm-hmm. God, be that ring of fire. Let the people in who need to be in, and just keep all the other stuff out. Yes.
That's good.
Be the ring of fire around my kids and myself. And man, I've watched how, you know, he's protected us and just brought people into our lives and out of our lives that needed to happen. Mm-hmm. And once again, if I wasn't,
your life is a real thing.
Yeah.
And it could just be somebody that brings you down, or like whenever you hang out, you're always going to the bar and it's just no good,
yes.
you know?
Yeah.
We've had that happen in our lives too. It's usually always a good thing.
Even when it hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The hurt definitely is there, but in perspective, the hurt of losing somebody as a friend, as opposed to whatever damage that relationship is doing inside you or to your kids or whoever's around you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something that, once again, took me a long time to digest and be like, okay, fine, God.
But then you probably lose one friend and you get three back, right?
And that's exactly it. As one person exits, you watch and the right people just move into place. And it again, it comes back to perspective. If I'm sitting here, poor me, depressed all the time, which depression is a real thing.
Sure. Right.
But if I'm just sitting here in my own little stew of self-pity, I'm not going to see those moments, and you're
not going to be appealing to the next friend.
Right.
Nobody wants to hang out with Debbie down, or even though Debbie has a lot of reasons to be down.
Exactly. Debbie does.
I got to preface this. My friend, her name's Deborah. We call her Debbie or Deb. But she would always hated that. She's like, can we please use negative Nancy? And she's like so sweet and like upbeat and stuff. And she's like, come on, like coin something else. So she's going to freak out if she hears Debbie Downer on my podcast. I actually went to her wedding a couple weeks ago, and I met her husband's family, and they're like, oh, you're the one that she lived with, all this stuff. And then like the one brother-in-law was like, are you the one that called her the Debbie Downer when you first met? I'm like, wow, it impacted her that much that she told her future like brother-in-law. Like he's like in a different state. I'm like, So anyway, okay, sorry.
Right. You never know what could be sensitive out there. To all the Debbies listening, we hope there are many. We're sorry. We want to take this time to apologize. Nancy, you too, and Nancy Davis, especially to you. So we are just going to call it Negative Nickies. I'll take it. Just kidding.
Let's change it to a male's name.
Yeah.
David
Negative
Downer.
Normans.
I don't know.
Yeah, David Downers.
David Downer.
Davy Downer. I don't know. We'll work on it.
I'm not so creative. Again, that takes brain cells.
Okay, sorry, squirrel moment.
It was a great squirrel.
I hit a squirrel
Very
today.
nice and fluffy.
I hit a squirrel on the way here. It was so
that's
sad.
sad.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. I tried to swerve, and he just ran right in to me.
Don't tell your husband. The husband's be like, don't swerve. You hit. You go
I know.
straight. You just break.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You swerve. And then you think, oh, wow, I could have swerved a little too much. That's bad.
I know.
Whoa.
Well, it's
He was
actually on a
great.
safe
I'm not gonna
road.
tell him
Yeah,
that.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
Tammy, what would you say to the single mom out there listening right now that's more in the difficult season, so hasn't, kind of come out of it at all? What would you say if you could give any piece or pieces of advice to them?
Yeah. I would say feel your feelings. Take the time. No matter how nasty the situation is, don't talk negatively about the other parent.
That's
I think that's huge.
Because that hurts them, and it hurts them a lot. But feel your feelings. Take that time to process and heal, but also make sure you're coming out of it. There were days where I had to break down. I couldn't help but break down. And I found that letting myself break down and cry, whatever I needed to do, and then go and have a popcorn movie night with my kids and pile on the couch and play card games, that time always refreshed me and gave me fresh strength. God has got you. He's got you. You have to just put your trust in him. And it is a constant thing of, I'm afraid for tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids tonight. How am I going to pay rent? Are my kids scarred for life? Well, yeah, probably, but they're okay. God's going to use their story.
Yeah,
Another thing that my very wise friend told me is, I don't get to choose my kid's story.
Wow, that's good.
That hit me like a ton of bricks. I have the story that I want for my kids, and that probably all of us want for our kids, but God already knows their story. He knew that all of this is going to happen long before we were even born. The only thing that I can do is support my kids as they are going through their story. Point them to God.
And if they don't have trials, then he can't build their character.
And that's
like
true.
What we have to think and remind ourselves is that when you're going through a trial, like he's building your character.
Yes.
He's more concerned about your character than your comfort. So if it takes a little bit of roughness and hard years to get you to where he wants you,
Finally come to
yeah,
Jesus.
you're being refined just like a diamond or,
Absolutely.
the pressure.
I did a live a few weeks ago, and it was basically targeted to single moms out there. And because I think we had been seeing single moms post about how guilty they are of how they've been treating their kids. And but one thing that we've been noticing lately is how, especially single moms, I feel guilty about traumatizing their kids, about having bad moments, about being beaten down so hard themselves and not being happy and all the things, worried about all these things. And isn't it so hard? It's so hard for moms that aren't single moms to have guilty moments. I am not good at this. I yelled at the kids. I'm not good at doing their homework. I'm failing at their homeschool, all these things all the time, right? So it's normal for everyone, but I feel like single moms don't give themselves grace at all. People like me, like Sam looking at them, are saying, you guys are killing it. You're doing all this by yourself. You don't have somebody that, when you come home and you're just having the day that you can't, lean your, head on their shoulder. You don't have somebody just, even if it's not a ton of extra housework, that's there to do something. I feel like single moms are absolutely killing it, and I hate it. It hurts my heart so much that they would think of themselves as less than, that they see other women out there that look like they have it all together. No mom does, not even nobody. But if they, it kills me that they're not giving themselves grace and seeing, like, stop the negative and write down your wins. Like, look at, like, how much you've pulled your family through. Like, I don't care how many moves it's going to take. I don't care, what it's going to take. You guys are going to have food. I'm going to, get you to where you need to be. I'm going to stay in this district so you can graduate. And I feel like that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. But what do you say to the single mom out there that feels, Samantha's laughing at me.
I love your passion.
I am.
You're just like,
I know. It gets me,
no,
though.
I agree,
it hurts my heart more than anything that they can say, like, I'm scared to scar my kid. And they have all these extra worries, and they're not seeing any of their wins.
Yeah.
So what would you say to that mom?
So failure is not an option. I'm pretty sure I speak for just about any and every single mom out there, or married mom. Failure is not an option. And so moving forward is the only thing to do. God made each of us the mom for each of our kids, specifically. God knew everything that was going to happen. And it comes back to, we're not in control of their story. Or to a point, our own story. You're gonna feel like a failure. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna randomly say a bad word, and your kids are in shock because they've never heard you say a bad word.
Which I see as a positive. But that's like the only time they've heard it.
Right?
My son called my husband on me and told him. He's like, are you telling on your mom right now? I'm like, listen, I said that word because you were in trouble. Now I'm in trouble.
Yeah. But you're not going to be perfect. And God created each of us to be a perfect you or a perfect me, not a perfect, I'm like God and I don't make mistakes, but you are a perfect you. And he created that you to be your child's mother. So he will lead you and equip you as you go along the way, but give yourself grace. And probably the phrase that I absolutely hated the most, be gentle with yourself. I hated that.
Oh, so why? I guess I haven't heard that term very much.
For some reason I've heard it a lot, and maybe it's because I needed to hear it. Be gentle
that
with
is
yourself.
Related to guilt. Is that when that comes into play, or
like,
when did people say that?
Like grace, like take it easy on yourself.
Okay.
Like,
Like all of the above. The guilt, the I'm not doing a good enough job.
Yeah.
I should be protecting my kids. Things should be better for my kids. All of the above. Be gentle with yourself, but it is actually the truth. It's giving yourself grace.
Didn't want to hear it. Dang it.
Yes. Allowing yourself to heal. And as much as I may not want to admit it, I have actually used that phrase when talking to other people.
You're like, oh, didn't just come out of your mouth.
well, I think just in motherhood in general, like whether you're a single mom or a non-single mom, whatever, I think that the most important thing as a parent is not about being perfect and not messing up. Like we're all going to fall flat on our face and make these huge mistakes, but it's about, can we go to our kid and be like, hey, man, I failed in that area and I'm so sorry. And I did this, and apologize and say like, I'm learning, I'm trying to do better. I'm going to, really try not to do that next time, or whatever the case may be. Like I always tell my kids, I'm like, this is my first time being a mom. And they're like, we're 15, 12, and 8. And I was like, yeah, but I've never had a 15, 12, and 8-year-old.
Right?
It's a whole new stage, okay?
Is.
It's a lot different than 14, 11, and 7. Just
I don't want to mess it up.
every
I
year.
don't know what I'm doing.
I just don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
There's no playbook, because there would be a million playbooks. Do it this way. No, do it that way. Do it this way. No, do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Everybody's
And everyone
And
can
then
give
you have your own
20,000 different ideas of how it should be,
Yeah.
but there's only one way it's going to be.
Right.
And God knows what that's going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we always like to ask this in the testimony podcast. Is there a way that somebody out there that is a family member or a friend to a single mom, is there any way they could show up better?
Love them. Don't judge them. Some days loving them is going to be letting them fall apart. Make yourself available. And depending on your relationship with the single mom, don't be afraid to show up on their doorstep and be like, okay, you're getting in the shower, I'm making dinner or whatever. God created a man and a woman and a husband and a wife to have a family. And God created how it's supposed to be, where the husband is the leader of the house and women are created as more nurturers than men. God never intended for sin to enter the world and divorce to happen. So truly, God did not intend for there to be single parents out there, but there is. So you have, even if it's a single dad, a single mom or a single dad trying to do it all alone or all alone, and it's something that you're going to mess up. And having those people around you who will come in and not judge you and send you pizza for delivery for dinner tonight, whatever it is, they're not going to ask for help. So if you see a need, maybe just try offering.
Be a little helpful.
Just do it.
Do it like Samantha. Right? Samantha didn't give me an option at the time with my daughter's cancer situation. She goes, here's 3 things. You have to choose at least one. So that is going a step further, because a lot of times people are like, let me know if you need help. And everyone's like, well, that's kind of vague. So yeah. One of the things you did touch on, kind of going backwards a little bit, was some people didn't agree with the divorce. I feel like that happens a lot. I feel like there's lots of divorces that should happen for right reasons. And even the ones that happen for right reasons, people still, and right biblical reasons or whatever, there's still people that have these opinions. That just, again, that's another thing that gets me sometimes, Yeah. And you don't want to go on and tell your life story to everyone.
No, it's not their business.
Yeah. So
at the same time, it takes a minute to realize it's not their business.
Yeah. And give them grace because they don't know. Also, right? Like they should be saying what they're saying.
Yes.
Forgive them, give them grace, because you're not going to tell them everything. And so you're just going to have to be humble and be like, well, they can think what they want to think, but that has to be hard.
Yeah. It is. And it took a while to just acknowledge the fact that it doesn't matter what they think or say. It doesn't matter what he may or may not be saying about me. In fact, my family, my parents, my sisters, my brother, they did know the details. They knew what was going on. And there was one day that we were living with my parents and my sister at the time, and it was just a few months after we separated. And my dad walked up to me and he said, I think I need to sit you 2 down and you just need to work it out. And he's like, this is not good. And I looked at him and I was like, Dad, I never want to hear you tell me what's what like that again. It's like, everything that has happened. I have tried everything, we've been through all the things. Yeah. It's not going to happen. But he was seeing the hurt in my kids and what my kids were going through, and it was hurting his heart. Now, it definitely hurt my heart for my dad to know all the details and still tell me, you need to just figure it out, when I've been figuring it out for 15 years. Yeah, right. But
so even close family members, even it's just between you and God.
It really is. It's between you and God, and you are accountable to God and only God. And that's accountable for your marriage, what kind of parent you are, how you handle the hard moments. And absolutely, you are going to lash out, you're going to have a tantrum, and you need to have that conversation with your kids afterwards. Just like you were saying, I messed up and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that. And I can tell you, having those conversations is what they need, because if you're having those feelings, they're having those feelings too.
Sure.
And as an adult, I was almost 37, and I didn't know how to handle those feelings and how to process them.
Sure.
So as kids,
Especially.
they don't know even more. They don't know.
At the end of the day, is it just loving them? Loving
really
them
is.
hard with all your might. Isn't that the best thing you can do, even when we fail left and right every day?
Yes. And my kids are older now, and we have conversations, more mature conversations about the grief that they have felt and the loss, and just overall their feelings about life. And even still, 5 years later, we're still having conversations about the divorce and what life was like before.
And is it age appropriate things? Is there a reason for that?
Absolutely, it's age appropriate.
Yeah.
100% age appropriate. Kids don't need to know more than they need to know. But still having those conversations and being open has made a huge difference for my kids' healing and my own healing.
So good. So much wisdom.
Yeah. I think we set the stage as a mom. Like, we are super imperfect, trying to do the best that we can. But if we hide all those feelings and everything from our kids, I don't think we're doing them, a just service.
Yeah, absolutely. They're human. We're human.
Yes.
And figuring out how to be
See how mom processes.
godly little humans on this earth.
Thank you so much. Your story is inspiring. So much so much to unpack there. So I already have people that I'm going to send the podcast to. But with closing, do you want to do a little plug-in for your Mission Nutrition?
Yeah. So our drinks are delicious and very nutritious. Right? Filled with vitamins and all the good things. And I love the fact that it kind of debunks the myth of nutritious is disgusting.
Yeah.
So can be healthy.
So, I know, some of your drinks, have collagen in them. What are some other stuff?
Yeah, there's no sugar in our drinks. Any sweeteners or natural sweeteners. We can tailor just about anything to whatever you're looking for. If you want caffeine, no caffeine. Packed with vitamins and minerals and protein. And we have a lot of people who are doing the keto diet, or people with diabetes who come here, and people with food allergies. We have a lot of options.
And you have your blended frappes, you have coffee options, you have just your iced fruity drink options.
It's almost is this a Lotus type of drink, or is it different?
No, I've never had a Lotus.
Oh, okay. Just kidding.
Lotus is an energy drink, right? Is it a Lotus plant
they're
thing?
herbal teas,
Yeah.
but yeah, they're essentially energy
Okay, so teas. Yeah. Okay.
We've got shakes, protein waffles.
What is your most popular drink or drinks?
It's a great question. The
go
Reese's
across
egg
the
is
board.
pretty
Yeah, that's
popular.
It's a good one.
Wedding cake, shake.
So if somebody was coming here for the first time, what would be the go-to? You would say, I'm pretty sure they're going to like it.
The Godfather.
Oh,
it's a specialty.
why haven't we heard of this
Yeah,
one?
what
I
is
don't
it?
know. It just popped in my head. It has all your protein, biotin, collagen, vitamins, caffeine, and it's berries and coconut.
Is it a blended one?
Yep.
So
it's like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so it drinks like a regular drink, but
Okay.
it has all of that goodness.
What
in
kind
it.
of fruit is in it? Is it berry?
So
Did
they're
you say
tea
that?
flavors. So, I mean, our shakes do have fruit in them.
Gotcha.
But for like the regular drinks, they're flavors.
Okay, flavors. Okay, gotcha.
And I do like their protein cake pops.
Oh, yeah.
Those are
I
good.
haven't had one yet.
Oh, they're
Those
so
are good.
good. Guilt-free.
Yeah.
Guilt-free.
Go
I love
for
it.
Yes. So good.
Yes.
Okay. I have one more question for you.
Uh-oh.
What are you having for dinner tonight?
Oh.
I'm
I
just,
think Mexican,
you can't say
actually.
a drink.
Oh.
You can't say a meal replacement drink. That wouldn't be
Right?
fair.
This morning, another example of the small business community. A few of the business owners were here, and I think we're all getting together to get Mexican tonight.
yum. Mexican's my favorite. I could eat Mexican like multiple times a
good.
day.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yum.
How do we get plugged in? If we technically have a business in a couple months, we're working on that
Yeah.
right now.
Technically.
Yeah.
I assume you technically have to have that. How do you get plugged in? Do you guys meet regularly?
So there are different business.
I totally ruined your last
I know. I'm like,
I'm just like, curious.
why?
They're actually having an open house here from
Oh, that's
5 to
cool.
7.
We could pop
When
in
is it?
probably.
Yeah.
This Thursday.
5 to 7.
Yeah.
And then you have other groups like Little Black Book.
I was just gonna say
and
that one.
some bigger ones. But really just going in and saying, hey, I have this new business or I have this organization, and talking with the business owners is probably one of the
that's
biggest
awesome.
things.
Yeah, I love it. Well,
Yeah.
maybe we'll be there Thursday. I
Yay.
I can make it.
We're all about networking. That's what.
Yes.
Landon has
Yeah.
a game.
I could probably go with Valerie
Okay.
for a little bit. I'll support the team. Where I go, she goes, even if she's not there.
In spirit.
I love it.
Okay, what are you having for dinner, Nikki?
I believe we're having burgers, and
yeah.
you gave me that coleslaw.
Coleslaw.
I don't know if I could whip up like vinaigrette slaw or something. That would be good on
Oh, I
a burger
have the
because I have good buns.
Best coleslaw recipe. I'll
Okay,
send
I
it
don't
to
know
you.
if I have all the ingredients, but so yeah, burgers
probably do.
and fresh cut fries in the air fryer.
Yum.
Those
Yeah.
are the best.
Yeah.
I'm having-
Mexican though, I'd probably
know.
that probably would trump it.
That's like
That's
my
fine.
go-to is Mexican. I'm having banh mi bowls, but I feel like I've said that so many times on this.
Yeah.
It's
They're
just a
good.
favorite, and we're making them tonight. So
That's awesome. You said 6 p.m. on Thursday?
5.
5 to 7.
Yeah. Is it 4:30? Just kidding. Okay.
You should put 4:50 in there,
I know, I
and then
should
you'll
put,
show
like,
up on
4:10,
time.
and
Yeah.
then I'll be there on time.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
what I need to do. I have been struggling to get myself up and out of my house in time to open at 6:30. So I have customers who this morning, one of them, she beat me here, and she's like, it's kind of a game now. Am I going to beat Tammy there or not?
Rolling in hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some days I'm unapologetically late. Some days I'm like, girl, get it together. You're
Yeah.
like training these kids. They're watching you.
They're watching you be late.
Yes. Oh, you're so busy.
One of those moments the opposite of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just like Paul says, I do what I don't what I do.
I'm late all the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so very much. We're so grateful that you said yes to coming on, and yeah, can't wait to connect with you further after
Yes,
this.
thank you for having me.
See you next time, mamas.
Yay,
That was
that's it.
good. A little help could be helpful.
And it really is.
It just
And
makes it work like she's trying to make her own quote. A little help. That should be our first T-shirt. We're talking about merchandise.
Ooh.
A little help could be helpful. Aligned
I
Mommas.
like that.
So is it not?
Really deep.
I mean, it's deep, but at the same
Helpful.
point, it's deep.
A little niceness could be nice.
Okay, but it went with her story. Like sometimes the mom could use a little help. That'd be really helpful for them.
I mean, you're not
Okay,
wrong.
Well, listen.
But truly, God.
This has been one of the funnest podcasts in a long time, by the way.
Oh, good. Yay.
I can see